Okay, we should be live, or will be live momentarily. Today we are doing a Vega undervolting and overclocking demo to walk you through some of the stuff that we encountered during the review process. But I'm going to give everyone a couple minutes to fill into the chat here, so hang tight with us while chat fills up. We've got a pretty cool streaming setup, I'll note before getting into this. And by pretty cool, I mean haphazard, dangerous to exist near, and takes up a lot of space. So we have a screen over here that's for the undervolting and stuff like that. And we have a screen on the other side, which is just for the actual stream output. So the system itself, I don't know how visible it will be without much light on it, but there's the system with the Vega card off to the side. And that's what we're going to be undervolting today. Okay, so let me just check chat, see how everything's going. Does everything seem okay to everyone? We tested it before going live, so I think we should be okay. Looks okay. No one's complaining yet, so yeah. All right, cool. As a note, Zeta is in here as a moderator. Thank you, Zeta, for helping out. If you have questions, post them in chat. I will try to read them. He'll kind of catalog them for me, and we'll go back through every few minutes and address all the questions. And it looks like everything's okay with the stream. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to undervolt Vega a bit live. Part of the reason for this demo is because during the process of working with this thing during the review, we encountered, there were a lot of issues. So part of this will show, like, hey, this is not a perfect solution right now. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it resets itself, sometimes the clocks misreport. There are a lot of potential challenges, and showing it live will help you see the unedited, just, I don't know, things we encounter along the way. Hopefully drivers will be updated to fix some of this in the near future. And we know there's a new driver out. We have the latest press version on here that was sent out prior to review going live. And that was, it did not contain the best gaming optimizations from what we were told. There's another driver for that. But if you wanted to overclock and actually test your overclocks, you have to use a separate one, which we did use, and has the undervolting capabilities. So chat's kind of filling up now. So I think we can get started on this. Do a mining benchmark. No. Someone says hello, Andrew, though. So acknowledging the camera operator, that's always a good thing. So let's get started. I think Andrew showed the video card a moment ago. This is Wattman. Wattman is pretty buggy right now, but it kind of works for what we're doing. This is Afterburner. Afterburner does not really report properly. However, this clock is correct from what I've been told. So even though it looks crazy small, that is a correct clock rate. And then the other tool we're going to use is called Watt Tool, which I find to be much more reliable than Wattman. But here's what we're going to do first. I'm just going to run a looping Firestrike demo in the background for right now. And this thing right here, so this is an old phone I have set up, which is communicating with our current clamp. So I think, let me see, that is showing up. Okay, cool. So that right now we're reading about 1 amp DC current, and that's at 12.3 volts. So not too much right now. So we're going to leave that hooked up, and this will be monitoring the power consumption at the PCIe cables for the RX Vega 56 video card, which we have connected right now. And that means that as the card ramps into its workload, we're going to see that number increase, and the goal here is to bring down the power consumption as much as we can while also offsetting the power target. So increasing the power target by 50% means that we are going to increase power consumption to the tune of, I think it's like 90 watts off the top of my head, but it is in the review. So going from the 0% offset to 50% offset means we're probably going to go to about 300 watts at the PCIe cables, at which point we start encountering a BIOS lock. And we did try to flash and get around that. We flashed successfully, but it doesn't boot. So no good right now on the bypassing that limitation. So increasing power offset increases our power consumption and performance because the clock can stabilize better, but we can undervolt it, and actually improve the clock stability by decreasing power, and in the process decrease power consumption, as you would expect. So here's what we've got. We got Firestrike is running successfully. Afterburner is not reliable. I'm going to show you why. See this clock? 1300 megahertz. Probably not accurate. What does Wattman think we're at right now? Well, maybe it's hard to say, quite frankly. This is part of the demonstration, is showing that the clock is known to be buggy. We've talked to AMD about it. They know. It's hard to know when it's actually reporting accurately. But if we go down to, let's get this into custom mode. So if we go down here, we've got a 1537 for our target frequency at DPM 6. And clearly it's not reporting that number, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, because what you need to do is validate with performance, not validate with these numbers, because those are often wrong right now. That should be fixed. So when overclocking, validate with performance, which means run a test first, run a test after the OC. If performance improves, that means that you've obviously overclocked it. If it doesn't, there's a problem. So let's look at the current here. We are currently at 16-ish amps, and that's going to be our baseline for stock. So 16 amps baseline stock is what we're going to try and stick near. And then if we, I'm just going to do a demo here, if we set the power limit to an offset of 50, you're able to see that. We tried screen capture, by the way, but it was too complicated for right now. So power is offset by 50% now, and you can see that our draw is now 24 amps. So if anyone in chat feels like doing some quick math, that number, just let's call it 24.5 times 12.3 is how many watts we're at for the PCIe cables. I think that's going to put you somewhere near 300 watts. And then previously we were at 16 to 16.5, whatever that may be. And that's going to be our amperage going through the PCIe cables. And do you want to, how well does that current clamp show up? Okay, so there's our current clamp. Let's see if we can not autofocus on the cable. And kind of dark, I know it's not in the light, but the clamp is here. It's clamped around the 12 volt lines for PCIe on the video card, which is a Vega 56. And the fan's starting to spin up, so if you hear noise, that's what it's from. Let's see, I'm gonna address some questions quickly. Ryan says, curious to hear Snowflake's senior AMD analyst opinion on Vega performance. Can we expect a video or article soon? You know, Snowflake has been a little too demanding lately on the compensation for those articles. So we'll see. She's currently tasked with shipping and receiving. A couple others. I have 300 euros for a GPU, sold my 1060. This is from John. I use my IGP now since it's almost exams time. Should I be saving up money to get Vega 56 or get to use 1070? I don't know. This is what I was saying in the review. It's really hard to say exactly what to do right now because the prices are all over the place. Vega 56 isn't technically out. It'll be out on the 28th, I think. And at that point, we'll be able to tell if the prices stick or not. But I just say keep an eye on that. Okay, so back to this thing. As you can see, we are overpowered on this. We've gone over the power limit, 50%. And now we need to, I'm going to manually set the fan speed. Actually, no, this is a good opportunity to demonstrate some other bugs with this. So let's type in 2700 RPM. I think this will trigger a bug. Yeah, see this? So this reports 3010 RPM right now. And basically there's an offset here where the number you type in, at least a couple hundred RPM, it gets exaggerated as you go up the chain. So we're at 3300 now versus 2900 input. So keep that in mind. The good news is that AMD fixed a bug here where once you increase the speed, you couldn't decrease it. That was on Vega Frontier Edition, but it's been resolved for 56, so that's good. And let's just bring this, we don't need this that high yet. We don't need instructions, okay. So here's what we're gonna do now. Let's do a demonstration of setting the voltages and the frequencies. And I'm gonna switch to Watt Tool soon because this will be insufficient at some point. By the way, our clock rate is now reporting higher. But anyway, so let's see if this will cooperate. And let me bring the voltage down to 1100 millivolts, that is. So 1.1 volts. Okay, so this is the only real way to know if this works right now, just because the tool is so buggy. Traditionally, if it doesn't work, it'll just crash, so you know very well that it doesn't work. But if it's staying stable, it doesn't mean it applied right now. So the only way to test it, you can probe the back of the card with a DMM, which we're not going to do right now, or you can check the clamp reading, and it's kind of bouncing up and down, so it looks like it's applied. You can see we're at 22.6 right now. We were at nearly 25 earlier. And it will go back up occasionally because we didn't really undervolt it that much. But you can see clearly that we're drawing less power at the PCIe rails. And the PCIe slot, for anyone curious, is really only responsible for powering the fan. So that's going to be no more than 28 watts. So 1100 millivolts. Now the thing is, we can actually get this clock higher as well. There's a bug here too, which I'm going to show right now. We can type in, this might be stable, we'll find out. I'm kind of going from memory here. If we type in 1600, okay, so it's increased the clock. We're at 1530, 1540 now in the reported clock, which not sure how accurate that is, but we typed in 1600. Now if I type in 1620, note that it does change it, it adds 2 every time, which is just a rounding thing. It will increase. Now we're at 1550, so we were at 1530 a moment ago, so it has offset by 20 megahertz, which is what I asked it to do, but we're inputting a much higher number than we're getting, and that's partly because of AMD's new dynamic frequency switching stuff, and partly I think because this stuff is all, software is all very buggy right now, but it's similar to what we're seeing with the fan outputs being not what we asked for. Anyway, we've increased the clock rate clearly, and we're actually still drawing like 1 to 2 amps, maybe 1 to 0 amps less. But regardless, we've really not changed the power consumption much from the 50% offset. We've lowered it a little bit. We can do better than that though. And at this point, I think I'm going to switch to watt tool. So I'm going to get rid of watt man, and we're keeping the card under load with Fire Strike still. So let's grab watt tool. And I need to launch this as administrator because we've got Fire Strike or Afterburner open. So this is watt tool. This one works okay. It's not officially updated, but it does work. And I'm going to check chat and things like that for a moment. GPU-Z work reports megahertz, right? Yes, it does report megahertz. It reports the frequency, but I need to look into it to see how accurate it is. And then Disturbed Medic, $10. Just a little something as a thanks for all the late nights. Yes. Well, thank you for watching, because waking up and seeing actual views on the video certainly helps. It's like, oh, people actually listened to the stuff we had to say after working for 2 days on rebenching the 1070 and then getting the whatever this card is called up to speed, the 56. Keep wanting to call it the 560. All right, so frequency. We've got our frequency table here, DPM states up to 7. The ones we want to play with are 6 and 7 only. You don't really want to mess with 5 or below because it will cause a bug in the software. That I don't know if it does it with 56, but with VFE, it would set this, or this one rather, memory frequency down to 500, which this says 500. It's actually not correct. It's 800 right now. That is one of the few things Afterburner reports correctly, is the HBM2 speed. So let's set this number to 1080, and let's see if we can keep the frequency there for now. Theoretically this will apply, but we'll find out if the bugginess rears its head. So right now I'm still seeing 23 to 24 amps, which is higher than it should be. So we're gonna try, I might have to start resetting some of this stuff and reapplying it, but we're just going to start typing in lower numbers until we see some kind of change, or don't, and if we don't, then we'll reset everything. So here's why I did not benchmark undervolting for all the games with that review, because one, we had like 27 hours, but two, more importantly, it's not really fully functional. It works, kinda, but you can see we're really not changing our current going through there. So right now it's not affecting anything. So what we need to do is reset everything. So I'm going to reset the power target to offset 0, reset the clocks to native, power target to native. We can probably leave the fans alone. So that works. Now we're at 16, 17 amps again. So that's clearly applied. And there's a certain order to this. I can't remember what it is right now, but we're going to find out. Either you have to do this one first or the other one first. But we've offset power. Okay, we're at 24 amps again. Now let's set this to 1100 millivolts. 1100 millivolts. Set. And we're down to 22, 23 amps. Okay, looking okay so far. I'm not going to play with the clock rate until we actually see this functioning. So there we go, 21 amps, it's working. We're down 3, which is going to be in the 30 to 40 watt range. to use a number more people are familiar with. And let's go down to 1040. Let's see if it's stable at 1040. Eventually this will either crash or it'll just stop applying. But I want to see how low we get the power draw first. So now we're at 20 to 21 amps. Remember, our starting point here is 25. So we've dropped 5 amps, which 5 times 12.3 is going to be a little over 60 somewhere. So now we can go down to 1020. So that means we've dropped about 60 watts so far. As a reminder, we have a power target offset of 50. So that's actually increasing our clock. From what Afterburner's reporting, remember, this is not really fully accurate, but it is precisely inaccurate, meaning it's offset the same amount each time. So with that precision, we know we've got a 20 megahertz boost over the stock clock, and we're undervolted from the power target offset. Now we're at 19 amps, so looking good there. So it is working. We're getting down towards the actual stock power draw while persisting with a higher clock. I'm going to go to 1015, which is the lowest stable I tested previously. Any below that will be news to me. And this is looking like about where it's either breaking or where we're no longer seeing gains. So let's call it 18 to 19.5 amps is our current range. I'm going to check the comments and things for a moment. Sebastian Krauthauser. Dude, your content is fantastic and I really appreciate the effort, but get some sleep at some point. Seriously. Don't tell me how to live my life. But yes, I agree with you. Thank you. Thank you for the help. Thank you for the super chat donation. Anything, Zeta, let me know if there are any major questions about this process I should be addressing in chat live while it's scrolling by. But okay, let's look at the next step. So we are currently we're still at 19 amps. So this is still functional for now. 18.5 to 19, looking pretty good actually. We're only 2 amps over what we were stock. Complete stock, no power offset, which was 16 amps. So 2 amps over 2 to 3 means we're somewhere in the 20 to 30 watt range more power consumption. So 30 watts more power, but well, as we'll see in a moment, a higher clock. So let's go ahead and, let's get GPU-Z open too. Just because I'm not sure which software to trust right now with Vega. It all needs to be kind of updated. Is this reporting the same? Yeah. So they're all reporting the same number, and I don't know how accurate it is. I think this one's actually accurate right now. It seems to be when it's in like complete stock configuration that it's wrong, and you'll see some reviewers and users talking about clocks of like 2,000 megahertz, which is not possible without some insane cooling or maybe even at all. So those numbers are wrong, and that's just because the software is buggy. But let's push this to, let's just put them both to 1590, which I think I had trouble with before, and see if we get any change in the reported. No? Okay, so now we're both 1590. Let's go up to 1612. I'm doing the 2 megahertz rounding that Wattman does. I don't know if it's necessary, but we can still type it in. All right, here we go. See that number or this number? We were at 1475 a moment ago, which was 1590. Let me just reset that. 1590, 1590. That should bring us down to 1475. Okay, well, apparently we're gonna clock higher than that now. Thank you, software. Okay, we're between 1500 and 1525. So it's kind of working. But again, if you do this at home, just be aware that you're gonna encounter a lot of bugs and problems. And as we can see, that has increased our power consumption now. So instead of just going unstable and crashing, it is remaining stable, but it's increasing the voltage going to the core without asking us. So we're actually back up closer to where we started. And this is why it was so frustrating to work on for that review last minute, because there is a method to it and you can get it to behave, but I can never quite figure out exactly what that process is. Let's increase this one and see if maybe we just need to provide enough more voltage to get it stable at these lower volts. Although we might have to reset everything again. I think we will probably have to reset everything again. PC Cold War, are you using a custom profile performance balanced? Yeah, so we're not using the Wattman profiles right now. We are using technically it's a custom one, and using Watt Tool to do the changes. Though I may switch back to Wattman to see which one's more reliable. And then a $10 donation from Sean. Thank you, Sean. Much appreciated. No comment on it, it appears, but thank you for that. Let's see, is there another one? Oh yeah, okay. So I think this user's name might be Skylake, if I understand correctly. AMD said the Vega launch price was a launch discount price and that prices will jump up shortly. WTF. Did they actually say that? So I know this story was posted a few hours ago, so I haven't been able to follow it. I know that Overclockers said that, but I don't know if AMD has said that. We did email them and ask for confirmation, but someone go ahead and update chat if AMD's actually officially commented on that, because I don't know if that's anything more than a rumor right now. Okay, so we're going to reset everything because it's not working very well, clearly. So reset, set. I don't know if I need to click that, but it's working, so we're going to do it. Clock's dropped. Power consumption's dropped. 16.5 amps now. And there you go. And anyone who's new to the stream right now, this phone is attached to a current clamp, so it's giving us a direct feed from the PCIe cables. So let's try this again. This time I'm going to try changing the clock first, and then the voltage. 1612, let's do that. Oh no, wait, I need to offset the power. Set, okay, we're at 24 amps, so that has worked. 1612, okay, that's worked. How can we bring this down? So we're going to 1100 millivolts. We've dropped an amp or so. It appears to be working. 1080. Okay, current's not changing right now. Still not seeing a change. This is what I was talking about. This is what I wanted to go on stream to show, is how unreliable this is. So a moment ago this worked, but I adjusted the clock second. Now we adjusted the clock first and it's not working. Let's reset. And this time, okay, power offset. And let's do this first this time. Maybe the clock was just pushing too high. 1100. Okay, we're going from 25 amps to 23. 1080. Okay, now it's kind of working again. So we were at 25 amps a second ago. We're at 21 to 22 now. And it's starting to work at these frequencies. Maybe we need to keep the frequency a little more conservative. Because again, it doesn't seem to crash when it can't support it. It just boosts the power. Which means, again, if you're benchmarking this, you really need a direct way to get the voltage going to the core or the current coming off the rails. So you can use a DMM to the back of the card on the probe points, or you can do what we're doing here. And that will validate if you're actually dropping power or if it's lying to you in the software and then just increasing the power as it needs it, which happens frequently. So we're still down. We're at 21, which let's get one of these up too. So just to get kind of the numbers easier to follow. So we were at 25. Let's get an exact number on that. So 12.3 volts, that's about 300 to 310 watts of power going through the rails. And then if where are we now? We're at 20.3 now. That's actually a good bit lower. 20.3 to 20.8. Let's call it 20.5. 12.3. So we've dropped 50 plus watts. So we've dropped about 55 watts, which is really pretty damn good. I haven't touched the frequency at all. So we're at the same frequency we were at. We're at a 50% power target. We've increased our clock stability and how high it's going without actually changing it manually, because the boost state's working a bit better with more room to play. Not a lot though, we can change that. And we've dropped power so that we are now about, what were we at before, like 16 point something? So we were at 203, now we're at 252. So we're 50 watts over where we started, as opposed to like 100 plus watts. Remember, we were at 310 a second ago. So if I reset everything, which I'm not going to do because it'll all break, we were at 310, and that was 108 watts over where we are now. But now we're 55. So we've clearly got this functioning at the moment. 1030. It's going to go down more. So now we are approaching 19 amps. We're at 20. 19.7, there we go, it's working. That's exciting to see. Okay, so for my own future reference, it seems that fixing the power target offset first, and then doing this, and don't touch the frequency until last. I'm checking the questions and comments here. One more in the style of tech power-up. Can you do a % efficiency over performance you get from doing this versus stock? 100% in their graphs. I don't want to do the math. Yes, I think I follow you. So basically a performance per watt type of thing, if I understand you correctly, Sean. So if that's what you're saying, I think we can do that for you. Next one. Mikkel Corral, do you have a compressor in the audio? If so, please lower the ratio and makeup gain. When you don't speak, the fan background noise is being amplified way too much. Did we have something like that last time? If you know where to change it, I guess go ahead. Otherwise, sorry about that. We don't have we're hooked up straight to a camera, so I'm not sure how much control we have here. But yeah, I can actually, we're at 70 Celsius, so I think I can get away with lowering the fan RPM a bit. Let's go down to 2100. It wants to stay at 75. Okay, so hopefully that helps out. We're going to increase our temperatures a bit as a result, but the fan is actually quite loud, so it might not just be that you're hearing it amplified. Let's go 2000. Okay, all right, that should help out a bit. Let me know if that helped. Hopefully it did. Okay, so where are we now? We are at 20 amps, and we're at 1030 millivolts with a frequency of 1538 and 1590 for DPM 6 and 7. I'm gonna keep leaving those alone for now. Let's kind of push our luck and see at what point the voltage breaks, and then we'll know for when I reset all this, and we can just start there next time. 1020 seems to be working. We haven't crashed, and it hasn't spun back up to the 25 amps it was at. 1015, it's hard to say if it's doing it. Well, yeah, it's gone down another 12 watts. 1 amp, 12 watts. So it is still working, and we're at stock frequencies, but we are offset on the power by 50%. So right now we're not going to have a huge performance gain in terms of frame rate. But we will have we're going to drop our power consumption down quite a bit. 18 amps, not bad, right? So we were at 16. So we're 24 watts over where we started at 1005 millivolts, so 1.05 volts. That's a pretty good reduction. Actually, I'm happy with that. Well, you know, we might as well just see where it breaks, right? So let's go down to let's do 1000. I'm happy with 1005. But just so we know where we can expect this to fail. This will help. And this also is going to be dragging our temperature down with it. As you reduce power consumption, you reduce the thermal concerns. 18, hard to say. 17 something to 18 something. It looks like it's working. At some point this will either prove to be no longer applying, which I'm questioning whether it is now. Well, maybe. 17 point something to, yeah, 17.3, so it looks like it's still applying. We're at 975 millivolts down from 1200. Let's do a bigger step. Let's try 955 and just, I really just want this to break at this point, or to prove itself to not be functioning. Falling down to 16 something. We are actually where our stock power consumption was now. How's our clock is actually pretty affected though, so check this out. We're at 13 megahertz, and we started at something like 1475, I think. What's our peak here? Oh, that's not really reliable. Yeah, we were definitely up towards 1500. So you can see where it's doing what it's doing. This is what Vega does now. So we're decreasing the voltage, and it does one of two things. One of three things. Either it works, or it downclocks you and works, or there's no change whatsoever and your power consumption goes back to where it started, in which case it didn't work, and either that's a software bug or something else. So we're clearly pushing too little voltage now because we're just dropping clocks like crazy to the point where it's going to affect your performance negatively. I'm just going to see what happens. Like, does this actually just straight break or crash at some point? Or does it just keep downclocking itself? Let's do 800. I'm thinking it should crash at that point. No. Okay, but it's also not applying anymore. We're not seeing a change here. Our frequency is... okay, our frequency is like 6 megahertz lower, but that's close enough to be insignificant. All right, so noted. We know where we can go down to like the 1000 millivolt range. Let's call it 1015, 1020. before we start dropping clocks like crazy. So let's let's start at 1030. I think I said we have to adjust this first, otherwise it'll not apply if we adjust the frequency first. I'm checking the comments here. So are you, Sir Papa, I recognize that name. Are you considering getting an instrument for frequency measuring for audio testing, such as fans and cases? So that would be for doing like a frequency spectrum plot or something. We've tried to do stuff like that before. The problem is I'm not trained enough in audio to recognize when something is accurately reporting or when something is being just kind of blown out of proportion by our measuring tools. So not right now. We've done, ages ago, did a frequency spectrum plot with our Zoom recorder mic. And it worked okay, but I wasn't happy with my level of uncertainty in the results, so we just stopped. If there's a good way to do it in the future, then I'll look into it. And then, yeah, so BuildZoid chimed in here and just pointed out what we were talking about a second ago. Probably caught it earlier than I did. Steve, it might auto underclock as you lower the vCore, which is what we're seeing here. And there's no outright crashing going on. So it's actually, it brought the vCore down, or the frequency down quite a bit with that vCore we did. Why doesn't AMD do this tuning before finalizing the products for shipping? That's a great question, and I think the answer is going to be so the answer that they give us is that it's basically a tuning for the lowest common denominator to make sure you're not going to crash or blue screen or something. It's a reasonable answer. That's basically what they tell us, where you're binning down from effectively a 64 to a 56, or maybe, well, that's probably how it's happening. And if you bin down, the range of stable voltages or the range of frequencies where it's going to function is going to be different than the higher bin chips. So that's kind of the answer they gave us, where it's just tuning for the lowest common denominator, which if that's the case, then 1.2 volts is certainly going to keep all these stable at the clocks that they advertise. So no problems for AMD there. All their customers are happy, and the people who want to tune can go and tune separately. Why doesn't AMD? I just got that one. Modna 89, amps going up doesn't mean voltage does. Yes, but I don't have a DMM hooked up to the probe points right now, and it's kind of far away from the camera, so this is the best I can do to kind of gauge it loosely. Next question is, Myosin, keep up the good work. Greets from Germany. Thank you. Okay, so yeah, it would be nice to hook up a multimeter to that, but the camera, everything set up is already kind of crazy. So let's see what we can do here without dropping clocks. Let's keep, I think we just set it to 1030. I'm going to set this 1590 to see if it changes anything. Let's see, we're still not changing. So actually, let's boost this a bit. At some point, this is going to stop working, if it hasn't already. I might actually have to reset everything, because I'm not seeing any change anywhere. Okay, still not seeing any changes anywhere. 1600, let's do 1622. So it's either going to draw more power or it's not going to work. Yeah, see, nothing's changing now. So clearly this is bugged out. Let's reset. Hopefully we don't have to reboot. Reset everything here. And offset by 50. Oh, you know what I should show is the kind of bugginess here. Can we get this all done now? All right. So the thing here I want to show is sometimes, and I was talking to Paul about this too, from Paul's Hardware, we're not really sure why or when it happens, but sometimes if you input frequencies here manually, it won't really do anything. And we kind of found that doing a frequency percent offset worked a bit better with these Vega cards for now. Well, with these drivers. I don't know if it's changed with the public drivers. I haven't tested those yet. They have 18 dot something out now. Okay, we're at the right everything. Apply. So we got an offset there, 8%. I was crashing around 10 earlier, 10.5 I think. So is it actually working is the question. Okay, well it worked because it crashed. So that's good. We're actually seeing something happen with the percent offset. I gotta reboot this thing. Okay. Power on. All right. Do you think it's possible to use Vega 64 customer overclocked with 550 watt high-end power supply? Possible, yes. I haven't actually tested the power draw on Vega 64 yet, so I can't answer that. We did Frontier Edition. Overclocking though, if you offset power target by 50%, we were just seeing 300 watts through the cables, the power cables. So I think you'd probably want a higher wattage power supply just to be sure. That's 300 watts overclocked already out of 550, and then you've got the whole rest of the system too. So I would go a bit higher than that. I don't think AMD I think recommended a 1,000 watt power supply for the liquid version. That's absolutely unnecessary, but this is a product where it's going to be higher consuming in terms of power than others, so you need more than 550 I think if you're overclocking for sure. Honey Forest, did you see the link to the contact paper that measures dye to water block pressure? I did not. That's actually a really interesting idea though. I like that. Sir Papa, are you considering reviewing fans like you did with Noctua or a one-time thing? For right now, it was a one-off. I'd like to do more because I bought the tools to do it, but not today. And then last one for right now, Vincent, there are USB multimeters that can overlay on OBS. Ooh, that's really cool. I did not know that. That's a cool idea. Louis Rossman uses those. Okay, well, noted. I'll look into it for next time. That's a pretty cool idea. All right, 3D Mark. Settings. And we are just going to set this to run in the background again while going for a % offset just to kind of show how that aspect of the tool works. Then we'll get back to seeing what we can do with undervolting if anything at this point. So like it kind of works and it will maintain a higher clock, but I just can't get it to hold. As soon as, so in Firestrike it'll hold, and then as soon as I close, or actually in any application. So if I do here's what's going on. If I do the undervolting live in one application, get it stable, and get it to a point where the clock's actually higher, not lower, so not down clocking like we saw earlier. If I do that, it'll work for the application for sure, for a little bit anyway. And then sometimes it seems like when I switch applications to a game, it'll stop working, or I'll have to go back in and change things again. So I'm not really sure what the deal is. I think it's probably a good idea to just try and grab the next driver rev when AMD pushes it, whenever that is. Because there are a lot of known issues with this one that they talked about them too. Like, this is not a surprise to media. They communicated to everyone what the issues are. But anyway, so we're 10% offset just because, like I said, this was working a bit easier earlier. And everything seems like it's kind of working through WattTool, or Wattman rather. I'm going to bump this down to 9 because I know we just crashed a moment ago at that one. So bump that down. Let's see what we can do for voltage. 1200 right now. We are holding at whatever advertised speed it's telling us. Let's see. So it thinks that we are at 1468 right now for the frequency. Let's go ahead and drop this to something conservative, 1180. And we're still holding. We're actually, yeah, we're at 1500. So 1478 to 1500 right now is range. Well, it goes up and down with the Firestrike demo. I should probably just freeze that actually to a frame. And so that's stable. What can we do here? Not really dropping clocks yet at one. We're at 1150 millivolts. We're not dropping clocks here noticeably, not in a way that I'm seeing. 1125. Let's kind of do this incrementally. Nope. 1125. Oh, by the way, you can't go up to 1250 on this. You can do that on VFE, but here your max is 1200, just to kind of show everyone. So it's resetting, which means it's not going to work. So your max is 1200 on the Vega 56 card. And we crashed this time. So now, because I'm using the % offset, we're getting crashing, which means it seems to be applying more correctly, versus if you type it in manually, it either doesn't apply or it does so in a different fashion than you've asked for. And this is the frustration we're going through last minute during the review. It does kind of hard crash too, by the way. Drivers and everything crash, it freezes up, so. Let's see, just checking chat and stuff. All right. So we are currently rebooting again. Doing the percent offset method made the clock actually apply, whereas previously doing it through typing the thing in was either applying it to be lower than requested or just straight not working without actually giving user feedback. Okay, 3D mark. This time I'm just gonna freeze it on one frame to kind of work with something a bit easier. Demo, okay, we need this to be windowed. All right, and I'll just shout out Buildzoid here. He was in the chat for a little bit. I don't know if he still is actually hardcore overclocking. So he's got a channel where he does this stuff all the time, every day, hence the name actually hardcore overclocking. I'd encourage you to check it out. He knows a hell of a lot more about overclocking than I do. I am certainly nowhere close to his level. I'm not an expert. I don't hard mod things yet, but I know enough to point out how some of the software works and how to do some of the undervolting and things like that. The rest of it you just kind of learn trial by fire, strike. But his channel is great for all the other stuff, and I'm sure he'll be doing Vega content as well. So give the man a subscribe if you haven't already. Okay. So I'm gonna freeze this on one of the frames. All right. And let's see if we can get a more stable readout now without all the fluctuations we saw earlier, because it's just going to be rendering the same thing over and over. So custom, once again, offset 50%, fan's ramping up. I'm sorry about that. Actually, anyone want to see how loud this fan gets? Does any? Volume warning. If you're wearing headsets, you've been issued a warning. Just relative to my own voice, we did a dB measure on this, and I think it was something like 66 or 66 to 70 dBA. Here we go. So I don't know how that's picking up on the mic. Probably really not pleasant though. So let's just revert that right away. But there's your range for the fan. It's really not a great cooler. All right, power offset's good. All that's good. Let's do this one more time. Let's see, and then I'll go on to other overclocking things. So let's drop this again. Let's just go to 1180 stock clocks. Make sure it's applying. 25 amps steady right now. 24.8. It's very steady actually. So this freeze frame was a good idea for sure. Get this hair off my hand. So we're pretty steady, and that makes it easier to tell what the change is. 1160. Next time I might hook up a digital multimeter and plug it into OBS. That was a really good idea, because then we'll be able to see the current and the voltage, which would be nice. Is it doing anything is the question. Or is there like a percent offset on this too? No, okay. 24 amps, what were we at a second ago? We're at 24.4. Now we're at 25. Okay, so it's working. 25.1. And let's go down to this. So we're at currently 25.1. And now we're at 23.5. Are we dropping clocks? That's the question. So we've reduced our power draw a little, tiny bit. We're at 1533 megahertz right now. And a second ago we were at let's just confirm this for sure. I'm learning with you guys right now because I didn't have enough time to really dig into this with the review. So we were at 1534. I just increased the voltage, so give it a second to figure out what it's doing. And once we get an update on the numbers, we'll know. So we're at 1482. I'm gonna give it another couple seconds here, but it looks like that's where we are. 1482, what was I at, 1120 millivolts? So let's go down to 1120 millivolts again. And we're at 1530. Okay, now we're seeing a result. We're actually seeing the frequency improve with the voltage reduction. Let me just do this like one more time to make sure we're not catching it during some spiky behavior. 1533, right? 1200, or well, we're currently at 1120. I've typed in 1200, I haven't hit apply. We're at a 0% offset, we're at 50% power offset, and at the 1120 millivolt input I have, we're at 23.6 amps. Let's apply that. So we're back up to stock voltage now. We've dropped this time the third time, so I think we can call it 1484 megahertz, and we're up to 25 amps. So this is actually working this time. It's exciting to see. So we're, I don't know, 12 to 20 watts higher, which is not huge, but it's enough to tell us that stuff is functioning, and we're not dropping clocks now that I'm watching it more carefully. 1110, apply. We go up to 1520, so it's not quite as good as the 1530 number we saw a moment ago. We were at 1533 a moment ago. We're at 1528 now. I haven't offset the frequency yet, so we're still just working within the confines of everything else, but we're still 30 to 40 megahertz over what it was at 1.2 volts, and we're down now by 24 watts of power consumption at the PCIe cables, and we're down to 1.11 volts. So we've reduced our frequency a little bit, but from the already undervolted frequency, mind you. 1524, we've lost 4 megahertz here, assuming this is all accurate this time. And we're down to 22 amps. Let's see how low we can go before we start getting that 1480 number. 1080, and then I'll start trying to do a frequency offset. 1080. Okay, 1519. So we've dropped, yeah, we're dropping like at this point 18 megahertz from where we were a moment ago. 1533. Our power is actually falling. We're at 21 amps now from 25, so we've cut off a good amount, like 50 watts or something. And let's see what we can do here. I thought it crashed for a second. Let's do a 4%. Let's just see what a modest 4% does. Does it crash? And while that figures out if it's stable, I'm going to catch up on chat. So, where were we last time? Greets from Germany. We were at Buildzoid's question earlier, or statement rather. Not he certainly does. He certainly doesn't have a question for me. So catching up. Possible. No, got that one. Honey Forest. Did you got that one? I got that one. Steve, are you going to do the hybrid mod on this? Yes. Working on it. You have to set all P states below the max P state to the lower voltage, or the max P state the card will clock to is the one with the highest voltage. No, so actually with this, I'm assuming that I was referring to Watt Tool earlier. These actually just in custom mode, all we have is DPMs 5 and 6, or sorry, 6 and 7 in custom mode. That's all it gives you. And I think this ties back to Vega Frontier Edition, where if you changed these, because you actually could change these then, we can't now. Frontier Edition drivers, if you change these, it would drop your HBM frequency to 500 megahertz. It would have it. And with Watt Tool, it will show you those other values. So Watt Tool will show us, here you go. See, Watt Tool shows us 1 through 4, 5 as well. But it does, just don't mess with it. Wattman, there's a reason it only shows us the last 2, and that's why I'm only adjusting the last 2, because it's buggy. Next question is, Sean, can you explain the difference between AMD's new power management on Vega versus previous cards, or are they the same? New power management on Vega versus previous. Not right now. I need to read the white paper, honestly. I'm just, you know, we got the card, I tested it. So my knowledge right now is technician level knowledge of testing the thing and experiencing how it works and things like that. I don't actually know all the details on that, unfortunately. Next question, Bovis, what do you think the highest stable clock you could get on Threadripper 1950X using a custom loop is? No idea. I think we overclocked to 4 gigahertz, and I've seen people do 4.1. I think I saw one person do 4.2. The LN2 folks we interviewed did 5.2. I know there was a record set at 5.3 or 4 or something like that. So I'm really not, that's not a, I haven't followed Threadripper since Vega came out. Is there a chance AIB partners can improve on power draw efficiency by using better parts? And how much of the restriction to voltage and power draw would they be able to eliminate on their cards? So this is what we've been talking with them a lot. Yeah, there will be improvement. The biggest thing I'm asking the board partners is with BIOS, the question is, will you guys also lock BIOS as part of the alleged Microsoft Secure Platform initiative that AMD is taking, which they decided we're going to lock BIOS and make it so that you can flash it, but you can't modify it. You can't rename the BIOS. You can't change the power offset. So working with BuildZoid, I tried to offset the card 100% power, and we even just tried changing the name of the BIOS. And we can flash it on there with ATI Flash, but it will not initialize the display and put anything out. So you flash back to where it was and it works fine. So this is part of what AMD is saying is a compliance with Microsoft Secure Boot Protocol, I suppose. How valid that is of an explanation, I'm not sure right now. I need to look into it. But that's what they say. So we took that and we reached out to the board partners, just getting back to your question, and asked, will you guys also be forcing these requirements where people can't flash BIOS? Because if they have them, first of all, if there's a dual BIOS chip, why can't I flash it? Why is it on there? If I can't do anything with it anyway, all that's doing is giving me a switch to save myself from when it doesn't work because of their own secure boot requirements. So I'm not really sure. But if you have dual BIOS, I feel like there should be leverage or room in there working with Microsoft, if that is actually the problem, to make one of them an overclocker's BIOS where you can tune stuff. And to BuildZoid's point that he made earlier today when I was talking with him, motherboards conform to this secure boot protocol and have for a while, but you can still adjust RAM timings in those and other things. So why is it a limitation here? I think there's room to play, and I hope AIB partners actually take note that people want the ability to flash BIOS because this VRM and the GPU can handle more than what we're giving it right now and what we're able to. So I hope to see that. I also hope to see, well, I don't know that we'll see voltage tuning. We will see pre-overclocks for sure. Some of the liquid cooled cards from board partners are supposed to be around 17, well, okay, this is month-old information. But 1700 megahertz was what I was hearing then for Vega 64 for liquid cooled cards. I'm not sure if it actually came out to be that. And Zeta's typing in one more question to me, so I'm going to check that before moving on to this. By the way, this is still stable. We're at 1563 megahertz, which is really pretty damn good. As a reminder, we were at 1533 when we... Okay, let's walk through it. So we were at, from memory, at I'm typing these because it's easier. 1200, we were at 1484 or something like that. Somewhere in 1160 to 1180 range, we were at 1538 or 3. And then now where are we? We are currently running on 1080. So we're currently on 1080 millivolts. And it's actually working this time, which is nice. And we're at 1563 with a 4% frequency offset. Let me just save this. Okay, so we've got a guide here now. If this crashes, then I have to redo it. All right, next couple before I move on. Wishbone, $5, thank you. AMD jumped up the prices to $600. Your thoughts, and why would they shoot themselves in the foot, so to speak? So, according to Zeta, helped out by Googling this a little bit and says he hasn't found an update on this. So, basically, this question comes down to, there was the note, there's two things, right? There's a price, which is clearly more expensive. And then there was the statement by Overclockers UK, I think. And I haven't heard an official statement from AMD talking about prices yet. So I don't know if they did that or the retail partners are doing that. AMD, as they told us, their direct quote at the press event to a room full of media was, "We can't put a gun to the retailers' heads," and implied, tell them what price to set. So I don't know. If the prices are really up $100, that's a huge deal. To be fair, NVIDIA's prices are also up right now. So it ultimately comes down to where they fall once stock stabilizes a bit. I will give you my thoughts on the packs, though. We shot a video on this, didn't air it. We might revisit it or something. But the packs turned out a lot differently than I was expecting. The way I thought it would work is you go to Newegg, you add the card to your cart, and it says, hey, we gave you these discount coupons. You can use them if you want to. Otherwise, just buy the card and it's an extra $100 or whatever it may be. Unfortunately, The way it actually worked out was they bundled the cards in with the other hardware simultaneously. So there's like 12 different listings on Newegg or something. You can add any one of those 12. It comes with the pre-selected motherboard, CPU, and monitor in the US. Another issue with these. And the discount's theoretically pre-applied. You have no control over what's added to them beyond what they give you. And it's sometimes they're extremely weird configurations, like the really kind of the MSI X370 titanium board that Build Zoid analyzed on our channel, which has an unimpressive VRM, especially for the price, bundled with RX Vega and 1700X and 1800X parts only. It's kind of, I do not like the packs. I'll go on record with that. Now, I think they could have been done better. It is clearly an attempt at trying to make sure AMD is not losing money on the Vega cards, because that HBM2 costs a lot of money. It is not insignificant. We're trying to get an official statement on the price, but I have some ideas. The VRM is actually really nice on Vega 56. They're using the same PCB and VRM that they are on VFE. Everything's pretty expensive. It's a huge die. So I think the packs are basically saying, how do we recoup money from other areas of our ecosystem, the CPU and the motherboard, to account for what might be a loss leader Vega 56. I'm not sure about Vega 64. Those are my thoughts on it right now. But let's go back to this. So we're stable at 1563 megahertz. We're doing pretty well, actually. We're at 1080 millivolts. We're at 21.6 amps. So we're down. We were at 25 when we started. So we're doing well overall. Looks pretty good. Let's see where we crash. Let's go up to 5%. Again, just a refresher. This seems to be working better right now than manually entering the frequencies. As Paul also noted this to me when we were talking during the review period. We're at 1573 megahertz. So 1080 millivolts. What did I say? We're at 1573. And let's do it this way. 4%, and what are we, 6%, did I apply it? No, we're at 5%. Apply. We are currently at 1588, 6%. We're just waiting for it to crash. You don't want to do more testing on this, obviously, but it's going to give us a ballpark idea. 1080, 1600 megahertz, now looking pretty good. What's our power? We're at, this scale is like insane, so probably ignore the scale. The scale is 21.5 to 22.1. We're at 22, so not really much change on the power consumption. So we're actually still ahead for power consumption, and we're still ahead for clock. What was this, 7%? So now we're cooking. Now we're off to the races. Apply 8%, 1080, 1609. It's gonna crash at some point. It might crash sooner in games than, oh, we may have just crashed actually. Crash sooner in games than in Firestrike sometimes, depending on the game. The Witcher 3 seems pretty bad about it. So we crashed at an 8% offset. We're doing 4 amps lower than we were with just the power target offset, which is great. We have a clock that is up from a reported, what was the reported number? 1484. So our reported number was 1484 on the clock when we did just the 50% offset at 1200 millivolts. And now we're down to 1080 millivolts, and we were able to offset the clock to 16 something. 1609 kind of crashed at that point. So we're gonna have to pull it down a little bit. But we're able to do all this with a lower power throughput and do just fine on clocks. There's really nothing to be upset about with those at this point. So this is an area where if you get the card, you'll have room to play with it. AMD is not going to do it for you because they want to hit the lowest common denominator and make sure that everything works, or some other reason that they didn't tell us. But that's kind of the assumed reason. Oop, wrong one. Okay, Vega notes. All right, so let's do this one more time. And I'm going to start messing with HBM next. HBM's had a much bigger impact for us than clocks, the frequency of the core, I should say. And to the point where, from memory, in the review I talked about this, doing HBM and doing the power offset power offset alone, 50% offset from stock, gave us about 12% boosted performance. Power offset with HBM, I think, gave us another 4%, something like that. It's somewhere between 3.8 and 6%. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's in the review. Oh, this isn't windowed. And so the two together is really where you should be. Once we did frequency tuning, it was getting us no extra performance. It just wasn't even worth it. I think we were doing a 9% offset, and we were getting the clocks higher, but it just wasn't really doing anything for us. Okay, so we want this to be windowed and looping. I guess looping doesn't matter because we're going to be in demo mode and frozen. Okay. Gert Tarkter said, when you have such a small amount of time to review a product, how do you choose what to prioritize, what to test when you guys are in such a rush? Do you set limits on testing times? Definitely, that's a good question. So the way I do it is more or less, you look at the amount of time you have. We kind of know how much time it takes to do certain types of tests because we've done them so many times. So this actually happened with Vega 56, where I'm sitting there thinking 5 hours before embargo lift, while also having to edit the video because Andrew was out. You're thinking, like, can I fit in undervolting while doing this? And I tried, but I started encountering the problems we're having here today where it just doesn't quite apply, or I don't quite understand what's going on because the product's so new. And I'm learning here today. So there's, like, this is great. I wish I had this much time behind the scenes to review it. But yeah, so you look at those things, you're like, okay, I know it's going to take me 2 to 3 hours to benchmark the games again. So do I have enough time to undervolt it and do that? Not really. Do I have enough time to overclock it and run 1 or 2 tests? Okay, maybe I can get 1 in there. And then otherwise, you're looking at what things do you like the most. So for me, I really like doing thermal tests. I know that we do them pretty well. We do VRM temperature testing and stuff like that, which you don't really see elsewhere. And we had power testing in there, which I found really important and fun to do. And those things, you kind of look at them and you think, well, I think other people will handle the game benchmarking really well. I don't know that I can certainly contribute to the pool of data, but I don't know that I am going to be the biggest point of data for gaming benchmarks. So what can I contribute that's unique? And that might give some insight. Okay, we can do power stuff. We can do some thermal stuff. That's kind of how I decide. And then you just run the test until you run out of time, because generally my belief right now is if you're not using all the time you have up until embargo, you're really not using your time correctly. There's, of course, a lot more to that, and every outfit's going to be different. But with ours, that's how I view it. And there's nothing wrong with doing it differently, but that's how I do it. All right, so let's just one more time here go through. I think we crashed at 7 or 8%, so let's bring this down to 6. Oh wait, I need to do the power offset. The Wattman actually is kind of behaving right now. So that's good. That's really unexpected at this point. Let's try 2200. Let's see if it get away with it without blowing out the audio. Okay. GPU Z, which is kind of working. Frequency's offset already. We're at 1200 millivolts right now. Let's go to 1090. 1090. Apply. Okay, we've already increased our clock quite a bit. So we just went up from 1525 to 1596. And I brought the voltage up, so we're not really saving a lot of power right now. We're only saving about 24 watts off of just the power offset. So 1090, 1595, 6%. Okay, let's leave that there. Let's stop messing with that. What can we do here? 1080. Yeah, I should start a new column here. That's going to be amps. And I don't have a multimeter hooked up to this right now. We're at 25 earlier. Okay. So let's go down on that. We are at 1587. We've lost some of the frequency. Not a lot though. This is 1080, 1587, 6%, 21.8-ish, plus or minus 0.1 on this. Okay, 1070. How low can we go before it becomes no longer worth it from clock dropping or crashing? 1583, lost another 4 megahertz, 6% offset still. 21.5. Just clear progression. That's what makes this fun, is like actually seeing a change work. Seems to be working better than earlier, than Watt Tool was anyway. It really just depends on what order you're doing things and how lucky you are with the tools. I lost a lot that time, 1574, 6%, 20.8 amps. And then, what else can we do? Let's see, like, let's set a floor of, where did we start? 1484, and then with, where did we start here without the, okay, we started our offset with 1525. So at 1200, we're at 1525 with a 6% offset. And now we're still ahead. We're ahead 50 megahertz, which is actually pretty damn good. And we're down quite a few watts. So let's set a floor of 1550 before we stop and call it no longer worth it, because that'll still be a 25 megahertz offset for good power savings. So 1040, 1559, okay, let's call it 1560, yeah, 1559, 6%, 19.9, and maybe another 10 millivolts in there. 1030. So where are we now? 1550. That's what our goal was. 1550. And we are at 19.3 or 2. 19.2. Not bad. So we are up 25 megahertz, and we're down on power consumption. What happens if I do this? Is it going to try and go back up, or are we just going to crash? Haven't crashed yet. We're going to need to start an actual benchmark running to really force it to crash, but this might do it at some point. So 8% offset, we're back up to 1571. What's our power? 19.3. We haven't increased power really. Okay, well, let's leave it there for a minute. I'm gonna let this run, see if it crashes or not. Yep. So there's your crashing point once we got it running. All right, any more questions? I'm gonna probably start working on, I'll show off HBM2 stuff next. I think we kind of gave the idea of undervolting at this point. It takes a lot of guessing and checking right now, and you just have to get to a decision point where you basically need to decide how much more am I willing to sacrifice frequency to save on power. And the numbers we were at a second ago seem pretty good for a starting point. I think you could do better, but certainly with a partner card, but I'm not gonna sit here and do that all day. So we'll do HBM2 next, because I'm sure this is undervolting stuff's probably getting a little boring at this point. You can kind of predict where it's going. We're starting to bottom out. So let's show the HBM2 stuff. Okay, questions are, can you make lighter color shirts, new design, please? This is a new design, or do you mean lighter color of the new design? This is the anniversary edition shirt. I probably shouldn't have looked into the mic, sorry. So anniversary edition shirt is the newest design. We have them in teal and in gray color on the tri-blend and black cotton shirts. Next one, Splendor Solace. What kind of music do you listen to? I find your hair attractive. Okay. Mostly the Parkway Drive and Trivium and things like that right now. Wishbone, $5. Thank you very much. Are you going to be testing Asus 1440p 144Hz display with FreeSync 2? I'm not sure. For adaptive sync testing, I really want to start figuring out some objective measurement of what it's doing, and I think we'll get there, but I'm not sure what the timeline looks like. So not planning on it right now. Okay. All right, so that's where we ended up for now with this procedure. So where does that put us? Let's just kind of wrap this end of the storyline up. So at 19.2, and we could do a little better, but let's just call it there for now. We're at 236 watts at the PCIe cables. We're at plus, what's our difference? 1550 versus 1484 with the power offset only. I should probably do it with complete stock too, honestly, but we'll stop there for now. So what are we doing here? 1550, 1484. So we're up 66 megahertz. And we are down, how much? This is just stock clocks with the offset right here, 25 amp. So we're at 50% offset. So we're down from, not divided. It's 307 minus 236.16, 71. So we're down 71 watts from the power offset mode, and we are up, what did I say it was? 16 to 16.5 for complete stock. So 202, let's call it 203. So that's really not bad. I mean, I'll take that. What did I say, 236? Well, we don't need that much precision. 236, so we're 33 watt, which is what we showed in the review, but I didn't get to test it in games. So we're 33 watts, that's at least consistent with what we saw in the review. 33 watts over complete stock, and we've boosted the clock to 1550 megahertz. And it's stable, and it's consistent, and it's not fluctuating that much. So I'm really pretty happy with that result. And even better that you could do better if you, even better that you could do better. X equals X. even better that you could boost this if you wanted to spend more time on it, you had an AIB partner card, something like that. So let's stop there. That looks good. Last thing to do on stream, just to kind of show everyone, is the HBM2 stuff. So if anyone, by the way, if anyone's gonna like report or talk about our results somewhere, Reddit or forums or whatever, these are the numbers you're gonna wanna give them for right now until we have time to do more. And please make a note that there's more that needs to be done. But the numbers to give people, if you're referencing this on stream testing, are gonna be 236 watts at the cables. And we were at a 1030 millivolt entry manually into Wattman. We were at 1550 megahertz after a 6% offset in Wattman, and that needs to be stability tested, so please note that. And we're at 19.2 amps, so that gives us our power. So really not bad. Need a stability test, but we'll do that off stream since it's going to take a while. A lot of guessing and checking. Okay, last thing. I said we do HBM, so let's. We're getting away so far with this fan speed, so let's keep doing that. I just blasted at full if we weren't on stream, but all right, GPU Z. You know, if anyone watches this later, you just post that in the comments or something. Okay. So what do we want to do now? We're going to leave this alone. Okay, so let me just demo this live, and I'll answer questions while we run Firestrike. So let's everything reset, all the stuff, just everything reset, and Firestrike. So we're just going to do the same thing I did behind the scenes, except more in a more demonstrative way. No demo. We're just going to run Firestrike, 1080p, and let it. Actually, you know what? We don't need everything. We only need the graphics test, so we can save some time on that. So we're just going to run this stock, see what the score is, graphics score, increase the power, see what the score is, and this is all stuff I did more officially in the review. But it doesn't hurt to just show everyone live how it works out. And I'm going to do this windowed just so we can keep an eye on things. So there we go. That's going to run stock. And while that's getting started, see if there are any questions. Can you do crossfire? So someone else asked earlier, have we tested dual card crossfire? No, we haven't. I only have one. Did this launch? Yes. And someone else asked, can you do quad? No, definitely not right now. If we get that many, sure. Primitive discard accelerator and draw stream binning rasterizer are disabled now. Shaders have issues with anti-aliasing. How much performance is sitting on the table from unenabled Vega hardware features? Has that been confirmed this time? I know it was for Frontier Edition. Someone confirmed with us. Okay, there's a communication problem here somewhere. One person told us, an architect, that DSBR was in fact disabled for Frontier Edition, and another architect told us it would be enabled for RX Vega. More recently, I had a conversation with someone also at AMD who thought that DSBR was enabled in Frontier Edition but not fully functional, so maybe not a huge difference there, and improved in RX Vega. So that's where my latest official knowledge from them stands, is that it's on, but maybe there's more room. what I'm seeing in this comment and a couple other places online is that it's disabled. So I'm curious how people are testing to determine that. I know, so AMD was telling me that the tool that David Cantor used in his presentation showing the tile-based rasterization, apparently that's not really functioning correctly with Vega, so I was told not to trust that tool because it misreports. If that's the case, and that tool is what's being used to determine if DSBR is on or off, then maybe it's incorrect. So I unfortunately, I don't know what the current status is, because I've been told a few different things by a few different officials. So that's my knowledge right now. Yeah, that's about where I am right now. If it's all enabled, then I guess we're kind of seeing Vega at its performance minus whatever driver improvements come. Okay, so very quickly here, I'm not going to bother opening a spreadsheet or anything. We're just going to kind of type in scores. So stock, this is all like fire strike testing. Stock, we're at 18,892, and that there is some fluctuation there. So let's do this again, this time with an offset. We're only going to increase the power target. Nothing else. We're not changing the frequencies. Let me just double check. Not changing the frequencies, not changing the HPM, not changing the fan even, though that won't matter. Let's apply that and let it run. Fire strike. Okay, everything looks good. What was our frequency there? We were hitting, okay, reported frequencies in the 1300s. I don't know if that's accurate or not. I've been told it's maybe not, but that's what we're seeing at least. Any more questions here while this one runs? Bundle price, is $600 the bundle price per chance? Technically, yes. I don't know if that's where it's going to finalize though, but technically yes for 64. We're working on 56 right now. Gamers Access, when are you flying Buildzoid to the US so you guys can have a Super Saiyan hair battle? You know, I don't know that that I want to get into a hair overclocking battle with Buildzoid. I think he may overclock his hair a little bit more efficiently if you've seen his photos, or less efficiently, I guess. He's not really big on efficiency, is he? He's just big on more power. How come a card like Vega can have a higher teraflop rating than 1080 but perform the same or worse in games? This is a common question. Teraflop's not really a great measure of anything gaming-wise. It doesn't really linearly give you anything to work with. You can kind of extrapolate performance, especially within architectures, but it's just not a good measurement of performance in gaming. Vega does really well in compute, though. You can use teraflops to kind of figure that out. Let's see. I don't think AMD expects to get much more from any driver optimization. Yeah, I'm not really sure either. Can we see some overclocking and hashing? I don't have any of that set up right now, and I don't really know how to set up the Ethereum stuff, so I'm going to go with no on that. But I think I think Anthony from Tweaktown did a test on it, and he's kind of the authority on the media side with mining right now. I mean, he's got half of his house dedicated to mining, so check his stuff out. From what I've been told, there's more room in there, but it depends on if you're using private miners or not. I'm not really sure what that means. But it's something like 30 mega hashes right now, I guess. Thank you for being the best channel on YouTube. Thank you. Are you saying that Vivo Music is not the best channel? Or PewDiePie? What else do we have? Not seeing any more right now. Okay, so we got a score. So stock plus 50. 2769, let's just do a quick, what's our improvement there? 2769 minus 18,892 divided by 18,892. So we've got like a 9.9% improvement. Okay, that's our baseline. And you'd want to run these multiple times to really be sure, but you know, stream testing. So next one, let's do an HBM only offset. So I know this is stable at 980. I feel more comfortable at 950. So let's do 950. And you don't really, from what Buildzoid was telling me, you don't need to play with this voltage. I think this is the voltage, the controller voltage or something. But it didn't seem to matter too much. Everything else is the same. We've offset HBM by 150 megahertz. And we're going to run this one more time. Yes, 150 megahertz. Okay, all right. So we're going to see what that is now. And then I'll do a clock offset. And theoretically, if it's the same as the review, you'll see that it doesn't really impact much and that you're better off just doing HBM2. If AMD is dead set on sticking with that secure boot protocol by Microsoft, they won't unlock BIOS modding. Yeah, we'll see. We're kind of talking to them about that. They've expressed, depending on who you talk to, there's been interest expressed in maybe working on that, but depends on how high up the chain it goes. If it's media facing people, that doesn't really necessarily mean a lot. They might want it, but that doesn't mean that the higher ups care, or that even the agreements with Microsoft would stand or whatever. Can you fix the brightness and color? Steve's face is red. The answer I'm getting from Andrew is we normally process it through Premiere. Okay, it's running. So the overclock's running, or the benchmark with HBM only. Have you and Buildzoid met? No, I was hoping I'd get to meet him at Computex, but it didn't happen this year. Maybe next year. Someone saying, okay, I don't know if that's, okay, that's maybe not relevant here. Your audio is off. It shouldn't be. Where the audio is going in with the video through the same feed, so it shouldn't be. Does disabling secure boot in your BIOS matter for this? I don't think so. I haven't explicitly tried that, but as I understand it, that's not what's preventing us. Yes, so this is a good point. About secure boot, with a registry tweak, you can disable it. So we did some registry stuff, not to secure boot, but to the, what do we do? Power table stuff. And it works with Vega Frontier Edition. Buildzoid was doing something like 400 watts on his card. So it was working, but it doesn't work on 56 yet. We're waiting for Helm to look into that and see if it can be applied to 56 as well. Because you can get around the secure stuff with a registry tweak, and it is pretty easy to apply. Just a matter of, does it work? I guess we're not really at stock anymore, are we? HBM plus 950. Let's call it stock for the clocks. Okay, so now we are at 21660. What's our improvement here? Not a big one. 660. This seems a little bit off, actually. Wait a minute. Why is that looking like that? Okay, well, whatever. 769. You know what? Maybe this is okay. 2769. Is that right? Yeah, that's about right, actually. That's about right. It's 4.3%. Okay. So now let's do one more at least. Let's just go ahead and do an offset that I know is going to work, which is 9%. Apply and a launch, and then we're going to see how much that matters with the HBM overclock. We can do a bit more at 980 megahertz on HBM, but I know 950 is stable, so that's what we're at. Pod Even says 1070 versus Vega RX 56 for gaming and 3D rendering, Maya, Adobe Premiere. There are, so a friend of mine runs the site TechGauge, techgauge.com. Right now, I think he basically just only does articles. And his review of Vega, I think it has 64 and 56. His review's got a ton of workstation stuff. He actually found 64 to be a pretty damn good workstation card, interestingly. I would encourage you to check out his content to answer your question of Maya, 3D rendering and Adobe Premiere, because he tested all that stuff and I did not. So I think he has your answer for sure. Tech We Love, what microphone do you use? What do you like to use for this and other recordings? Heart you and your channel family, by the way. Thank you. So we're using a Sennheiser setup, wireless lab setup. We have a reporter mic. I've talked about this in the past. We have a reporter mic for shows, a stick mic. And then we don't really use a shotgun anymore. It's pretty much just labs for everything at this point. It's an expensive setup though. It's definitely not cheap to do wireless labs. But they haven't failed us. We get interference every now and then at shows, but nothing too bad. $10, thank you. Elixir, who says, hope you're having a great day. I hope you're having a great day. My day is much better now that we've got the undervolting more understood. I mean, like I said, this is not me saying I'm an expert in this, let me teach you. This is me saying, let me learn trial by fire on a live stream with buggy drivers. That's what the point of this was. So yes, it is going quite well now that we better understand undervolting and we know kind of where the bounds are. I've given some numbers on it for anyone who wants to post those elsewhere. I don't think, I might recap it somewhere, but yeah, it's going pretty well, so thank you. Okay, what's our score? So we are HBM 950 plus 9% on the clock, 22,228, and that is what? Oops, wrong number. It's 2.6. So that's about what we were seeing previously. Let me just read. I'm kind of half vacant here. Let me retype that in just to make sure. Minus 21,660. 21,660. Okay, yeah. So this number, we are 2.6% ahead of HBM only with the core overclock of 9%. It gets unstable after this in my testing. So not really exciting. This is much better to do. Actually, this is the best to do. Earlier in the review, I think we were saying 12%. So it just depends on how many times you run Firestrike because it does have some variance. And then here, so we are 4.3% over the 50% only offset. And what do we do if we are, let's take these final two numbers. So 21,660 is the score for HBM offset 950 to 950 megahertz. So we take that from stock rather than from the power offset. What is our gain? We're at about 15%. And I think we were seeing 19 for the review. So something's a little different here. But either way, I've got this system is set up a little bit differently, so that may be part of it. Either way, just kind of notes to myself here. HBM 950 versus stock, we're getting 14.7% boost. And then if we do core plus HBM versus stock, we're at 17%. Sure, versus stock. Okay, so we're at 17.6, sure. Gain. So that's where we stand right now. You can do a bit more because I did it for the review, but that's kind of roughly where we are. So basically, you get a lot just from this. It's kind of where it falls. And we can do more. Maybe one more is worth it. Let's do one more. I know we're going to crash at 9.5, not at 10% and above, so we're not going to bother there. And let's just, maybe this is what I did differently in the review. I had this set to 4,900 RPM, so there was no, or not, no, actually, that's a lie. It was 3,000 RPM, which definitely kept temperatures down. So maybe that's part of it. Last one, guys. Last one, then we're going to wrap up the stream. Run custom. Okay. See how it goes. Really interesting stream. Thanks. Thank you for the $5 support. Much appreciated. Helps us a lot. I'm sure we will be using this after the stream ends to go get some local fast food. I was going to name them, but frankly, they should be sponsoring us at this point. So, we'll see. You know who you are. We walked in there once, and one of the guys who works there made a joke about being celebrities. And so I guess he saw, maybe someone out there knows the answer to this. We've been trying to figure this out for months. The guy who works at the fast food place we like to go to, he said he saw me in some kind of roundup video by, what were they called? Do you remember what they're called?
Watch Mojo.
Watch Mojo. So apparently a channel called Watch Mojo, which is a pretty big channel, included, I don't know if it was us or a product I was talking about in a Watch Mojo video. And he said to me, how much did you guys get for that? I was like, what do you mean? Like money? They didn't pay us anything. I didn't even know they existed. So but yes, thank you for the $5. Really interesting stream, thanks, yep. Zahir Mahoob says, are you using the public drivers? No, we are using a press driver. I think it is called Beta 6A. It is the one that came out just before the public driver. I'm not sure if the public driver is different from that one or not. It might be a little different. And if that's the case, then you might be able to do better than I'm doing here today with that version. But I already knew how this one behaved, kind of, so I wanted to use that. Thank you for the honesty in testing and discovery by Nicholas Hinton. Thank you for acknowledging it and for watching. Yeah, we're trying to kind of learn this live because, I mean, yeah, there's a really limited launch window, and we don't often get enough. Normally, this stuff we do all of it in the week leading to launch, so there's not much point in doing it live. But if I'm going to be learning this today anyway, I might as well learn it on stream, and everyone can see all of the mistakes, mistakes and crashing and driver bugs, all that stuff all at once, so we can get it all out of the way. Okay, so we got a score. What is this for? This is core. What are we doing? This was a 980 HBM. So core plus, let's call this 980. I want to know what that means. Plus 950. And we're at 9% core here. What's our gain? I should be typing this down actually. So 9% core and 980 HBM is giving us 2659. Okay. 18892 divided by 892. So our performance gain, not bad. 20% increase from overclocking. What was our power during all that? It looks like we were at about 25 amps. Remember, we're not undervolted right now. We're just overclocked. I went the opposite direction with this and moved on from the undervolting. Our undervolting results, if you missed them, are all up here. We ended up at 10. Oh, here it is right here. These are the numbers we care about. Maybe. No, those buttons at the bottom are right. We ended up at 1030 millivolts, 236 watts at the cables. So we were 66 megahertz up and 71 watts reduced from baseline of the 50% power offset only, which is really pretty good. Now for the overclocking section, we've got versus stock 50% offset only. We're at a gain of 10%. The important thing here is if you want to not put a lot of effort into this and you buy this card, this is a 56, the power offset is going to help you a lot because you 10% performance. You also increase your power consumption by about 100 watts to 110 watts. So if you want to counter the power consumption increase with the performance gain, you can do this stuff up here, which is going to be manually guessing and checking, but you'll get it eventually. And in this instance, what happens is we go down from 310 watts to 236 watts with a good clock. And does this have enough visibility yet? So we're sitting at 1550 to 1600 in here, assuming that's somewhat accurate anyway. So that's the takeaway is, if you don't want to do a lot of effort, do this thing, 50% offset, and then find some numbers here that work. You're maybe not going to be able to copy mine, but it gives you a starting point. Maybe start around here. And you end up with 30 watts more power consumption over stock with roughly a 10% performance increase. That's not a bad trade. And then if you want to increase other stuff, you can do it at your own leisure. But this is where we are today. So I'm going to stop there. That's enough for the stream. There's a lot more we can do with this. Frankly, I'd like to get the hybrid mod on here first. So we're going to liquid cool this first and see how far we can go with a better cooling solution. I could go a bit further on this thing, I think, if I increase the fan to 100%, but it's just not stream friendly because it's 70 decibels. So it's going to be right under where my talking level is. So yeah, that's what we're looking at. Keep an eye out for the hybrid mod. We posted the teardown part 1 today. If you haven't seen it on the channel, check out the channel, youtube.com/gamersnexus. The teardown's up. You can see the teardown. But I'll save you some time. If you've seen our Frontier Edition coverage, it's the same PCB, same VRM, same construction, different screws. That's what it comes down to. So we need to do the hybrid stuff next. Let me read through the last few questions here, and then we'll close out. Trench X Spike says, do you think Vega Instinct, I can tell you right now, this is getting into territory where it's kind of out of what I study. Do you think Vega Instinct and the workstation cards use the same PCB as the other Vega cards, sort of as a way to subsidize, okay, that's a good question, the part of the product line? So I'll answer this on the RX side. I think Vega 56, 64, and FE use the same part because if they're doing low volume production on Frontier Edition and they're buying the PCB already, then they can buy a lot of that PCB, a lot of that VRM, and just ship all the cards on the same thing. It probably simplifies their warehouse and storage costs. It simplifies their manufacturing costs. It makes sure they meet MOQ for Vega Frontier Edition, which they might not have otherwise without the 64 and 56 cards. I don't know about Instinct though, I'm sorry. A Lynch, Steve, what is the ambient in there? It's better, well, it feels better this time. Last time we did this stream it was like 78 Fahrenheit. So I think it was 26C or something. So it was pretty uncomfortable and I was sweating. But it's a bit lower this time. We found out one of the vents for the AC was closed. So I opened that up. Blade McKenzie, $30.35. Thank you very much. How do you think the 980 Ti would compare to the Vega 56 if both overclocked? I'm not going to say what I think because I think we haven't measured. Somewhat. I think we have a 980 Ti reference in at least one of those charts in the review. If we don't, I'm sorry. I'll try and run the test. But I think it's in there stock. So that gives you a baseline. Then you can just kind of extrapolate based on how far people normally overclock or how far yours overclocks. Okay, this is a great tutorial for miners, someone says. Wasn't the intention. I guess you'd probably apply some of that there. Okay, I've never seen you sweat. You know, I'll point out, again, we have a GN Steve channel where I do downhill mountain biking. So there's some of that in there. I need to upload more videos. But yeah, I think that's about it for the stream, everyone. So thank you for watching. As always, you can help us out directly at patreon.com/gamersnexus. This shirt, if you like it, is the anniversary edition shirt. It actually has PCB and VRM components on it. I would not advise you to try and build a PCB based off of it, but it looks pretty cool. So that's on the store, gamersnexus.squarespace.com. And otherwise, the last few times I've tried to end a stream, it just abruptly interrupts me because I click stop streaming. So I think we have to wait for all of the words to finish going through the system or unplug HDMI. But thank you for watching. You can go to the channel for more, subscribe, all of that. And I think all the important stuff is out now. And I think you've probably heard the disclaimer about the stream is about to be cut off until someone comments and tells me how to end a stream. So I will leave it at that. I'll see you all next time. Just wait for it to end. Okay.